just what is the dynasty value for the incoming rookies of the 2025 class? We'll talk about that in today's video. As always, if you like dynasty content, make sure to hit the subscribe button, the like on this video, and join our Discord. It is free. Link is in the description. We go live all the time, live startup drafts, live rookie mock drafts. So get in there, join us, and also some listener leagues are going to start coming together. So Keep Trade Cut has added the rookies into their database, the rookies of this 2025 class. And it's very, very interesting to see where they're already valued. Now, this is obviously going to change. It's currently February 14th. So combine needs to happen, free agency, draft, all that good stuff. And that's going to change the value of these guys. But it is good to see just currently what these guys may potentially come in as, starting off with Cam Ward. Cam Ward, who a lot of people have as their QB1 in this draft class, although it's not as clear-cut as it kind of was the last couple of years where, it was Caleb and maybe Jaden Daniels. But, I think most people had Caleb as their QB1 for the pre-draft process. For us, this year in 2025, it's Cam Ward to Shedeur Sanders, and it's very, very interesting to see the difference in value of those two players. We have Cam Ward here coming in as the QB 13, just behind guys like Bo Nix and Jordan Love, and just ahead of guys like Kyler Murray and Brock Purdy. And I think he's fine in this tier of guys. It's a big, giant tier. Cam Ward, Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, Baker, Penix, Lawrence, McCarthy, Bryce Young, and Goff are all in kind of one tier. And I think that's okay. It's going to be a rookie quarterback who a lot of people are thinking is going to go maybe number one overall, but definitely in the top 5. And he has a lot of potential, I think. He has a pretty big ceiling, in my opinion, Cam Ward does. He has the arm talent. He has some mobility, some playmaking ability as well. So, is he a perfect prospect? No. Are we a little bit lower on him than other past quarterback ones in drafts? Absolutely. I mean, you just look at Caleb Williams when he came in and was entered into the database. He started off as the QB 8. So obviously the quarterback level is a little bit lower, but I do think it's very interesting to see Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders and the difference between them. And I was shocked by this when I saw this. You have Cam Ward as the QB 13, Shedeur Sanders is the QB 23. And it's not like we're dealing with a situation here where, again, we know that Cam Ward is the clear-cut number one guy and there's no one close to him. There's still a chance that Shedeur Sanders is the number one quarterback in this draft class taken. And I'm just very curious as to why he is this low. Is this just the perception of people? And this is why it's so important to kind of go over this and do this exercise, because how people perceive players outside of just their ability to play football is very important to Dynasty. Caleb Williams, a lot of people just didn't like Caleb Williams as a person, or that he painted his nails or whatever. He was a little too cocky. He wanted ownership. Calling his punter and telling him he's never going to punt the ball, things like that. And that affects perception and value in Dynasty as much as it maybe shouldn't. It does. And we're much easier to drop him. Quentin Johnston is another example of that. Not a lot of people liked Quentin Johnston, didn't like the pick by the Chargers, thought that they should have taken a guy like Zay Flowers. And because of that, as soon as Quentin Johnston doesn't perform, he's going to drop further. And it's much higher to climb to the top when you start from further down, right? There's just this perception-wise. I mean, Kyron Williams is a good example as well. He should probably be ranked a little bit higher, but he has the perception of 5th-round pick, sucked his rookie year, and things like that. So I am very interested in this. I think he's potentially, I think Bo Nix was even ranked higher than Shedeur Sanders when they first got entered into Keep Trade Cut. And so what's the reason for that? And how is this going to change? We're already predicting Shedeur Sanders. Every mock draft you see has Shedeur Sanders as a top 5 pick. So it's not like we're predicting him as a late first or something. Maybe when that finally happens, he moves up, but it is very interesting to see the difference between Cam Ward coming in as QB 13, Shedeur Sanders as QB 23, when it's still, to me, up in the air who is actually going to go first in this NFL draft. There are 2 more quarterbacks I do want to mention. This is kind of the next tier of guys. You have the top 2 in Ward and Sanders, and then you have the next 2. These guys have kind of separated themselves as QB 3 and 4, whatever order you want to put them in. It's Jalen Milroe and it's Jackson Dart, QB 27 and QB 28. These guys have a chance, especially Dart. I think Dart has a chance to go in the first round. I don't think Milroe does. I think Jackson Dart does have a chance to go in the first round. And Jalen Milroe is in a lot of mock drafts is the QB. Is the QB 3 or 4 going in the second round. Now I do think Milroe is ranked higher than Dart because for fantasy the rushing upside. Now Dart can run the ball. He ran for over like 500 yards in college, which is a pretty good number here. But I think Milroe is kind of that special talent. You know, he rushed for 20 touchdowns. So I think that's why he's ranked a little bit higher. Not a whole lot to say about these guys. A lot of it's going to determine where they get drafted. If they get first-round draft capital, for example, for Jackson Dart, he's probably a first-round pick in a lot of Superflex Dynasty rookie drafts. I'm not a believer in Jackson Dart, but at the same time, sometimes you have to just let the NFL tell you what they think of these guys, especially with quarterbacks, because they're just so hard to evaluate. Milroe, I expect to get second-round draft capital at best. A couple other quarterbacks, the next tier of guys, it's Quinn Ewers, Will Howard, Dylan Gabriel. There are 32, 33, and 34 respectively. Again, we just need to wait and see where those guys go. If they go in the third round, unless they go to a team that knows how to develop quarterbacks like the Rams or something, I'm kind of out on those guys because they're not really rushing upside guys, and third-round quarterbacks just don't historically hit. Into the running backs, and obviously this is the draft is all about running backs, right? This rookie draft is stacked with running backs. Ashton Jeanty comes in as the RB3, right where I predicted him. I predicted him to be the RB3, come in as the RB3 behind Gibbs and Bijan. Those two guys are kind of in their own tier. And then you have a big, giant tier of guys, Jeanty, Barkley, Achane, Breece Hall, Bucky Irving, JT, Kyron, James Cook. So you have a big tier of guys, but we do have 3 running backs already ranked in the top 12, 3 rookie running backs already ranked in the top 12, headlined by Jeanty. And it makes sense, right? Like, would I trade Achane for the 101? I would. Would I trade Breece Hall for the 101? I would. Would I even trade Bucky Irving for the 101? I would. And again, is that me saying it's 100% certain that Jeanty is going to be better than Bucky Irving? No, but it's all about the value. And that's going to be the theme of this video, is the value and the potential for these guys to increase in value to make it to that top tier of guys. Jeanty, if he goes to the Cowboys in 12th overall or something like that, he could be in that tier with Gibbs and Bijan, or at least very shortly after the season starts. If he performs like we expect him to, he's in that top tier. He's in that top tier. And it's a little bit harder for those other guys to get there because Jeanty's already starting off with a huge advantage. He's the clear 101 in all formats for Dynasty rookie drafts. I don't see that changing unless he somehow falls to like the second round. Then RB2, for me personally, for keep, trade, cut, rookie running back 2, that is, for keep, trade, cut, and sorry for that blurry image there, and for a lot of other people, is Omarion Hampton. To me, he is the clear-cut RB2, and I kind of feel like he's in a tier to himself. I know people want to group him together with Travion Henderson, Caleb Johnson. I think Hampton's a step above those guys. I really do. Like the size, speed combination of him, the contact balance, he can catch the ball. He's a decent pass blocker. Is he a perfect prospect? No, but I think he'd be the RB1 in a lot of other draft classes. It's just, he happens to be in there with Jeanty. He comes in already as the RB8. And that just, again, shows you the value of potentially, to me, Hampton, I think it's almost a guarantee he goes top 5 in rookie drafts, assuming he gets a good landing spot. There's a chance he goes 102. I've seen him as high as 102. I have seen him as low as like 107, 108, depending on where he lands in these mock drafts. But to me, he's the clear-cut RB2. He's in contention to be the 102 in Dynasty rookie drafts. He's awesome. And I think he's kind of appropriately ranked. He's just behind Breece Hall and Bucky Irving. He's just ahead of Jonathan Taylor and Kyron Williams. But he is in that tier with those guys, including the same tier as Jeanty, Achane, guys like that. Now, people are going to argue, would you really want Hampton or Jonathan Taylor? And it goes back to who has the ability to maybe make it into that top tier of guys to where you become a huge, huge asset, almost an untouchable asset, one of the most valuable pieces in all of Dynasty football. Who has a better chance to get there? Well, it is Hampton. It's Hampton. How does he get there? Well, he comes out year one and he looks awesome. And he's arguably in that tier with Gibbs and Bijan or just outside of it, right? Whereas Jonathan Taylor, although a very good player, very productive, and would I be surprised if Jonathan Taylor's better than Omarion Hampton the next year or two? I wouldn't. That's how good Jonathan Taylor is. His age is always going to keep him away from there. He literally has to have a Saquon Barkley type of year. Saquon Barkley just came off an amazing, one of the best running back seasons we've ever seen. And he's RB4 because he's 28, right? And age is going to come into play. Jonathan Taylor, still only 26, but he has to have like a Saquon type year in order to kind of get close and approach that top tier. So that's the logic behind, cashing out on Jonathan Taylor, and just going younger with Omarion Hampton. Is it a risk? Absolutely. But who has the chance to kind of approach that top tier? More of a chance? It's probably Hampton. The RB3 and the RB3 for me, another blurry image, I didn't do a good job checking these, is Travion Henderson at the RB12. So he's the third running back to be ranked in the top 12 here, which is insane. I think we only had one last year, potentially. It's Jonathan Brooks when he was first entered, that is. Travion Henderson to me is the RB3. Some people have him as the RB2. I do think he's an awesome player. And I think he's kind of appropriately ranked. A lot of people think he's going to get day two draft, early second round draft capital. And he's kind of in that, he's at the end of that tier, that giant tier of guys that do include JT and Hampton. And so, this is just the value of this draft. I think a lot of people coming in said this isn't a very good draft. It is a very good draft. This draft is very deep. Now, is it deep at the valuable positions in terms of long-term value, wide receivers and quarterbacks? No, but wide receivers get pushed down because there's so many running backs and tight ends. Quarterbacks get pushed down. So this is a good draft class. And Henderson, potentially a guy that I've seen go as late as the 108, 109 in Dynasty rookie drafts. And he's going to come in as a top 12 running back potentially. Caleb Johnson, all the way down at RB19. And this plays into my theory of how you should approach the rookie draft this year. And I've been telling people I'm all for trading back from the 102, 103. If you're at the 102, 103, trading back to the 107, 108, 109, and still getting a really good player. Would I rather Omarion Hampton or would I rather Caleb Johnson in a 2026 first? Give me Caleb Johnson in 2026 first. Although I do have Caleb Johnson as my RB4, would I be shocked if he's better than Omarion Hampton? I wouldn't. He's a really good runner. He's a little bit more dependent, in my opinion, on where he's going to land on the team. But he's a very, very good player. He's a very good rusher, a downfield guy. Teams are going to love him. If they're going to make him their featured guy, he's going to be like a Jonathan Taylor type of production, right? Where and what I mean by that is it mostly comes through the ground and through your legs and not through the air. But he's that talented of a runner where he could just rush for 1,800 yards potentially, right? I know that's best case scenario, right? I don't expect him to be this talented pass catcher like potentially guys like Genty, Hampton, and Henderson, which is why he is RB4 for me. But I think the value here is great. He's all the way down as RB19, valued just behind Derrick Henry and McCaffrey, just ahead of Chuba Hubbard and David Montgomery. And I'll happily take Caleb Johnson over Montgomery at this point, assuming, again, and I can get Caleb Johnson potentially at the 108, 109, and he could just be better than Omarion Hampton, and it wouldn't shock me. So that's why I'm all for that idea of trading back. Quinshon Judkins, I meant to switch those two, and I should have had them switch because Quinshon Judkins is actually ranked higher. So that means we have 5 running backs guys already in the top 20. 5 rookie running backs. We have 4 in the top 15. Quinshon Judkins, to me, is the RB5. I do have him behind Caleb Johnson. I have some questions about, his potential ability to be that every down guy, his speed, a little bit in question, like that long distance speed, but he's a really good player. He's my RB5 in a really good draft class. And I'm excited to see Quinshon Judkins and where he goes. Does he go day 2? Does he go second round? But he's already ranked as the RB15. Now, if I had to choose, I would definitely be taking Caleb Johnson over Quinshon Judkins. But again, it shows you the value. I've seen Judkins fall to the 110. If you play in a Superflex tight end premium league, you could have Genty, Hampton, Ted McMillan, Luther Burden, Emeka Ibuka, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Shador Sanders, Cam Ward. You could have all these guys go before Judkins, and I think I even forgot guys like Henderson and Caleb Johnson. And that's again why I'm all for trading back here and picking up assets, because it's really deep, guys. It's really, really deep. And so Quinshon Judkins does come in as the RB15. A couple more running backs I do just want to throw out there really quickly. Devin Neal is actually the what would that be? The RB6, rookie 6. I say RB6 as in rookie, which is interesting. From what I hear about Devin Neal, everyone loves him. Everyone loves him. So yeah, it's Devin Neal. Everyone seems to love the guy. And he's a name people know because he was in college for a very long time. Well, I shouldn't say he was in college for a very long time, but he was productive in college for 4 straight years. His freshman year, he was relevant. He had over 750 total yards and 9 touchdowns. So the guy's been 4 years of production. A lot of people know his name, and so he's again, we talked about perception, right? And what is the perception of players and how that affects dynasty value. Devin Neal is one of those ones where almost everyone I talk to and listen to, they like the guy. Oh yeah, I like Devin Neal, And so he already has like a positive vibe and aura around him. And so, if he gets decent draft capital, if he goes high in the draft, if he produces well the first month of the season, he's more likely to move up because people already like him. So it's much easier to move them up. Ollie Gordon is the next running back. He's a very interesting one because obviously Ollie Gordon coming into the 2024 college season was Ashton Genty, right? Like he was the Ashton Genty before Ashton Genty. He had a massive second year in college, sophomore year in college. Ollie Gordon did. He had a massive year, over 2,000 total yards and 22 touchdowns, and then just efficiency fell off. Now, can you blame that on OSU and the offense and the offensive line? OSU wasn't very good this year. Maybe. Ollie Gordon, there's enough people that like him to where I'm probably not going to have a lot of them because I see Ollie Gordon sometimes go first in the first round of a Dynasty rookie draft. And I'm not telling you, hey, don't do it, you're stupid. I'm just saying that's not what I would do. And so if he's going to go late first or even mid second, I'm probably out on Ollie Gordon, assuming he doesn't get really good draft capital and lands on a good team. That being said, if he starts to fall to the late second, third round, I think I'm going to be in on Ollie Gordon just because can someone unlock that massive type of production that he had his sophomore year in college? Can someone find that again in him? And if they can, you might get a steal. I always point out, go back and look at Chuba Hubbard's college career. Chuba Hubbard had a really good freshman year, a massive second year, sophomore year. He rushed for over 2,000 yards and then fell off his third year and kind of fell in the draft. And look at where Chuba Hubbard is now. Just saying. The last guy on the list that we're going to talk about here, there are obviously more guys, but Dylan Sampson, who for me, I'm a lot higher on Dylan Sampson. I'm a big fan of him. I think he's productive. I think he's very good. The analytical stuff, the production profile, he's fast. Now, the biggest weakness on him is his size. Bucky Irving's biggest weakness was his size. Tank Dell's biggest weakness was his size. You couldn't really find a whole lot of other weaknesses with Bucky Irving and Tank Dell besides their size. And those guys proved, now Tank Dell got hurt, of course, but those guys proved that if you're just good, if the production's there, if the analytics are there, if the film is there, you're probably just going to be good. And size in today's NFL is not as important. Big Dylan Sampson fan. I have him close to that tier with guys like Caleb Johnson and Quinshon Judkins. That's how big of a fan I am. And of course, there are other guys, RJ Harvey, Trevor Etienne, Jordan James. So it's a pretty deep class. Cam Scatterbo is an interesting one, all the way down, starting off as the RB68. I'm way higher on Cam Scatterbo than that, but we'll get to that in in future videos. Into the wide receivers we go, and the wide receiver one in this draft class is Tet McMillan. Now, very interesting. He's wide receiver 14, which again, I'm not saying that's wrong, or he should be higher, but this guy is consistently mocked as a top 5 wide receiver pick, and there's not many wide receivers in the history of the NFL that have gone top 5. I think he's almost a lock for top 10 to 12. I'd be very surprised if he fell outside of the top 12, and I'd be decently surprised if he fell outside of the top 10, with the potential, starting with really the Patriots, to go top 5. Patriots could take him, maybe the Raiders, maybe the Panthers could take him. There's a lot of teams on the board that could take him. So he's a little bit lower than I think past wide receiver ones potentially have been. I mean, obviously Marvin Harrison Jr., he came in and was the wide receiver one in that draft class. And he was, I think, like already top 5 or something. So it just kind of shows you that this is a weaker wide receiver class. There are some really good guys at the top, though. There really are some good guys at the top. Wide receiver one, I'm trying to remember. Oh, JSN. JSN probably came in around this area, I would say. I'm going to double check. Where was JSN when he was first put into the database? Oh, he was wide receiver 12. So he's right around where Tet McMillan is. But yeah, I mean, Tet McMillan's an awesome player. I go back and forth between him and the next guy, Luther Burden, as my wide receiver one. They're kind of in the same tier for me. I think I might prefer Burden just a little bit more, but that's not anything to knock Tet McMillan, who, by the way, I know he's 6'5" and all that. He doesn't play like a 6'5". He's a possession receiver. He's a big possession receiver, which generally is better for fantasy football. Just an FYI. Luther Burden. By the way, guys, if you are liking the content, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. We just hit 1,100 subscribers, so we're on our way to 1,200. And of course, join our Discord. Get into some listener leagues with us and play with us. Come play with us. That'll be a lot of fun to put some listener leagues. We're going to start putting those together in March. Luther Burden, all the way down to wide receiver 24. I feel like that's pretty low. I want to say that I feel like that's pretty low. And just going back to like, where was Quentin Johnston when he was added into this, or Zay Flowers? I don't know who was considered the wide receiver 2. Quentin Johnston came in as the wide receiver. Yeah, kind of the same range, wide receiver 22. Maybe Zay Flowers was a little bit higher, but it just kind of shows you a little bit of the weakness of this wide receiver class. Although I think Luther Burden is awesome. And the perception is it's a weak wide receiver class, and that could mean these guys drop and you get some value, and people are taking RB5 or 6 over a guy like Luther Burden, which I think is a mistake. Luther Burden, I know people are going to say, oh, he's a slot receiver. He's not a slot receiver, guys. I'd be very shocked. And a team's going to tell you, if they take him in the top 20, they're not taking a pure slot receiver in the top 20. A team's going to tell you, or maybe even first round, he can play all over the field. Yes, he played out of the slot out of Missouri, but he didn't win on slot-like routes all the time. Of course, he won on slot routes, but he also won on kind of outside wide receiver routes, down the field, contested catches, leaping over people. The guy's awesome. He can play all over the field, and that generally is better. If you can play on the inside and the outside, that is where we find the fantasy gold. So I like Luther Burden a lot. And honestly, like, just for value wise here, like I'd take him over a guy like Zay Flowers, who he's ranked just behind, just because I think Burden has a lot more ceiling play depending on where he goes and his offense, whereas Zay Flowers is a little bit hindered by his offense. Emeka Egbuka is the wide receiver 3, only 2 spots behind Luther Burden. And all this is going to change very quickly as more people start ranking these guys. This is initial rankings, but Emeka Egbuka coming in as the wide receiver 3 in this draft class, which I think is fair. Another blurry picture, is the wide receiver 26 in a giant tier of guys. Emeka Egbuka, I feel like, is going to be a very good NFL player. I'm not quite sure what his ceiling is. I think in order for his ceiling to be a top 15 type of player consistently, he's going to have to fall onto an offense that's going to throw the ball with a good quarterback, that wants to throw the ball a lot. If he falls on a team where they like to run the ball, they don't have a great quarterback, I kind of see him producing at like the, at the Zay Flowers, Olave, Jameson Williams type of level, like good, solid wide receiver 2/3s, but you kind of know what you got in them, and we're not sure if they can ever reach that top 15 consistently. That's kind of how I view Emeka Egbuka. I think he's a great 2 for a team. Travis Hunter is the wide receiver 4 in this draft class. That being said, is Travis Hunter going to be a wide receiver? That's the big question. If you guys want to get in on some rookie drafts, join our Discord, because we do a lot of live rookie mock drafts. And it's fun to see Travis Hunter and where people are taking him, all the way from the 105 to the middle of the second round, right? And that's because we just don't know what he's going to play. Now, it did get announced that he's going to go as a cornerback to the combine. Does that mean he's going to be a cornerback? Maybe. That being said, if I'm Travis Hunter, look where the money is, man. Just look at you have to be elite. You have to be Jalen Ramsey or Pat Surtain if you're going to get top tier money, if you're going to get really good money at a quarterback position. You have to be top 5 type of guy. Wide receiver, like Christian Kirk got a bunch of money a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago. Like you could be a mid, wide receiver 20 and you still get paid. So I don't know. It sounds like he's going to be a corner moonlighting on offense. If they do use him on offense for 30-40% of the snaps, a lot of it's going to be in the red zone. Interesting to see where he should go. He's a giant question mark. Trey Harris is up next, the wide receiver 5, according to Keep Trade Cut. I'm not the biggest Trey Harris fan, although I know a lot of people are, especially if you like yards per route run, because the guy had an insane yards per route run number, over 5. Like anything over 3 is good. Over 5 is insane. I see like a huge range of outcomes for Trey Harris. In terms of where he gets drafted, I think he could be a late first-round pick if a team just likes him. Second-round pick, I think he could fall to the 3rd or 4th round, personally. And for his fantasy stuff, I see a huge range of outcomes. I do see, a guy that could potentially be, a wide receiver 2 for fantasy. I can also see a guy that's just a pretty big bust. So I'm not the biggest Trey Harris fan, but I get why people like him, and I think he's kind of appropriately ranked right here. Isaiah Bond is a guy I'm definitely not excited about. He's fast. That speed's gonna be valuable for a team. Absolutely. The one common denominator for these, and by the way, Isaiah Bond comes in as the wide receiver 46. I think he's down to wide receiver 47 already. The one common denominator for how to spot successful fantasy players is production. Throw out speed, size, strength, 40-yard times, yards per route run, whatever. It's did you produce in college is the number one common denominator. There's very few guys who did not produce in college who were successful in the NFL. Very, very few guys, right? Isaiah Bond just didn't produce, and I don't know why. He just didn't produce. So I'm kind of out on him. I think he's an easy target to see him fall very early on in the rankings. So Isaiah Bond, though, is the wide receiver 6. A couple other guys in this tier with him. Matthew Golden, who I'm a huge fan of. Huge fan of Matthew Golden. I potentially have him as my wide receiver 4 in this draft class. Is he an alpha number 1? No. Is he a very good number 2? Yes. Does he need to, like, if he goes to the Commanders, I will eat that up. Like, great quarterback, can be the number 2, doesn't have the pressure, can produce from year 1. The guy's awesome. Just go watch some of his film, and he's a great, great player. So, again, this is all kind of appropriately ranked stuff. We don't know where these guys are going to go, and there's still a pretty big range of outcome. I think Golden is going to be a first-round pick. That's my prediction. I think he's going to sneak into the back end of the first round on a team like the Commanders or Lions or something. And then Alec Iomanner is the next one up here. Again, these guys are all kind of appropriately ranked, in my opinion, in this tier. But we don't know where they're going to go. We can't rank these guys too high just because a mock draft says they're going to be in the second round, because they could fall to the fourth round, like a Troy Franklin, right? And it's like, well, fourth round receivers almost never hit. Day 3 receivers almost never hit, right? So that's why they're ranked here. It's appropriately ranked. Alec's interesting. He has the tools to put it all together. Will he? I don't know. But we'll see as the draft process progresses. Into the final stage here, the tight ends. We have 2 tight ends already in the top 7. We have Tyler Warren as the tight end 4. And I think that's fine. I obviously have Bowers and Trey McBride ahead of him. I put him in the tier with the guys like Laporta and Hawkinson, right? Kittle maybe as well. Like if you expect Kittle to play 2-3 more years, then he belongs probably above him. But if you don't, it's always he's 31 years old. But Tyler Warren's awesome, man. He's my tight end 1. I think he could become a difference maker. If you don't play in tight end premium leagues, or you play in tight end premium leagues where the tight end premium is a half a point or less than double of whatever everyone else is getting per reception, it doesn't matter. You have to be in that top 3 to 5 tight ends in order to be difference makers. Everyone else is kind of just all on the level playing field, right? There's not a whole lot of difference between tight end 7 and tight end 15 in points per game. There just isn't. Now, if you play in huge tight end premium leagues where, you're getting 2.25 or something like that per reception, then it starts to make a little bit more of a difference. I think Tyler Warren could be a top 5 tight end difference maker type of guy. I do think he could. I think he's awesome. I think he's versatile. A lot of people are saying, well, you don't get fantasy points for blocking. I like Colston Loveland. And yes, you're right. You don't get fantasy points for blocking, but it gets you on the field. And that's so important. Go look at all the tight ends that are finishing consistently in the top 5. One thing they have in common is they're on the field all the time. The thing they don't have in common, the guys that are not finishing, or the guys that are not finishing in there are guys that aren't on the field all the time. Dalton Kincaid is the perfect example. Now, you'll have guys like Jonnu who maybe play 70% and still do well. Of course, you're going to have, exceptions to the rule. But generally, we need our tight ends and wide receivers to play 75, 80 to 90, 99%. That's why Cade Otton, Cade Otton is not this great talent at the tight end position, but he just plays every single snap. So he becomes a low-end tight end 1 because of it. Because he literally plays every single snap. Cole Kmet is kind of the same, right? Just plays almost every snap. And that's why he's a low-end tight end 1 at times, throughout his career. Go look at Dalton Kincaid's snap share, right? In Dalton Kincaid, I kind of compare him more to a Colston Loveland, yeah? And Dalton Kincaid just can't get on the field 90% of the time. And that limits his upside. It limits his upside. It really does. Tyler Warren, from day 1, to me, he can play 90, 95% of the snaps. He can block. You can line up at halfback, fullback, quarterback if you want to, center. Like, the guy's insane. I love him. And I like Colston Loveland too. He fits that pass catcher, slot, big slot type of player. Very productive at Michigan, even though their quarterback situation was horrendous this last year. Very productive with J.J. McCarthy. I think he's going to be a very good player. And I think he has the potential to be a difference maker. I do think he has the potential. I give Warren more of more outs, more options, more ways to arrive there. But I do think Loveland can arrive there. He's going to have to, show that he can do all the stuff that tight ends need to do, the blocking side of things and playing in line. But he is a talented pass catcher and put up really good numbers on a team that just did not put up numbers in the passing game. Colston Loveland, real quick, just for reference here, put up 582 in 10 games, by the way. In 10 games. I think he missed, I'm going to double check here. He missed 3 games. Colston Loveland, in 10 games, put up 56 catches and 582 yards and 5 touchdowns. Oh, that doesn't sound impressive. Well, 1, he missed 3 games. 2, Michigan threw for 1,678 passing yards. That means Colston Loveland, despite missing 3 games, put up basically a third of their passing yards. He was responsible for a third of their passing yards. Michigan threw 12 touchdowns. That means Colston Loveland was almost 50% of their passing touchdowns. Like, the dude's production was insane, even though the raw numbers don't look like it. I like Loveland. I think he's appropriately ranked. I do think he could be a difference maker tight end. I just like Warren a little bit more. Elijah Arroyo is the next one here. Got a lot of hype in the Senior Bowl. People saying he was the best player in the Senior Bowl, super athletic type of player. I'm excited to see where he goes, but he's if he gets the right draft capital, he's going to shoot up the rankings. He's the tight end 22 right now, and that's fine. But he is the tight end 3 for Keep Trade Cut, which is interesting. And then Mason Taylor is the tight end 4. Is the tight end 4 here in this as a rookie class, and he's the tight end 26 overall, son of Jason Taylor. Again, a lot's just going to depend on where these guys go, and they'll definitely move up or down accordingly. So other guys, Harold Fannin, tight end 32, Terrence Ferguson, Gunnar Helm, 35 and 36. There's obviously other guys ranked here. I didn't mention the other wide receivers ranked, but outside of Io Manor, the next guy after that is, it goes far. Guys like Restrepo are up next. So go check them out if you want to. Very early rankings here. So, but that's going to be it. Appreciate everyone. See you all in the next video.